There's David again. How late is it for you, David? What is it, like 2 in the morning now?
No, it's only 1.
Only 1.
Okay. Only when it finishes.
He's got his robe on there.
And where's our Scottish friend is what I want to know.
You'll be in Scotland. He hasn't got to. He doesn't seem to want it.
Okay, again, I'm going to ask everybody to go ahead and mute your own systems. And when you want to talk, unmute yourself. As you know, this is Todd Newport, and he's going to talk about collecting Zane Grey. And at this point, we're going to turn it over to Todd.
All right, and if you want to put it on speaker view, you'll probably be able to see things a little bit better too. Because I'll hold some things up to the camera, and hopefully we got enough light in here you can read it okay. Some of these will be kind of small and they'll be hard to read, but if you got any questions, feel free, and hopefully you brought some items to show too, because I didn't want this to be all about stuff that I have here. But you know, I'm going to grab the first Zane Grey book that I ever picked up. And a lot of you probably have this, and this is Photographic Odyssey that Lauren Gray wrote in 1985. And this one kind of got me fired up about learning more about Zane Grey, because I really enjoyed everything from the travels that he did, the movies, everything was in this book. It was just beautifully done. And I happened to buy it in Catalina when I was in Catalina one time in the 80s. So that's kind of how I got started. And I found out that Lauren Gray was still alive, learned about the family a little bit, and mailed it off to him. And he inscribed it for me, and he had this great inscription that said something like, to an adventurer like my father. So I was so excited that he said that. I was hooked at that time. But this is an excellent book to have for anybody that's interested in Zane Grey. Let's see what else we've got here. And we can get a lot into books. A lot of people have a lot of books, and the things that I have are nice. There's a lot of people that have things that are a lot more valuable and expensive to get in a lot of cases. But, you know, I've always thought when you're collecting, it's important to get what you can afford. And it's exciting looking for these things. Once you find them, you put them on the shelf, and it's not really as exciting as looking in the chase. So it's like that dog that chases the car. He never really catches it. He just likes to chase the car. But something else here, this is a little different than a book. This is Zane Grey road sign. This was up on the road outside the National Road Museum in Zanesville, Ohio. And they put these up for a while, then they take them down. There were several of these done. I believe Tom Meyer had this project going where he had these put out, and then they sold them for a while. Really, they were selling these before I came into the group, I would say in the 80s sometime. And I was able to pick one up at one time, and then come with a certificate that says they were actually on the road there for a while. So it makes a great little item for your collections. Another book, I pulled out some things that mean a lot to me for different reasons. This is a book called Under the Final Rim, and this is Hotter and Stoughton. So David knows a lot about this book, coming from England. But what was really interesting to me is I bought, and several of the books that I have came from other members in the group. And Terry's mentioned this before. It's always exciting if you can get a book that belonged to somebody that you really respected, liked, spent some time with. But this actually came from the prior president when they sold his collection after he passed, Jim Vickers. And he'd been the president for quite a few years before I became the president. And so I was really excited to get this book, and it had a nice inscription to him from Lauren Gray. And it was also signed by Zane Grey. So I thought, oh, this will be cool. I'll be able to take this, and then Lauren can sign it to me, and which he did. So I've got it to sign by Zane Grey, and then from Lauren Gray to Jim Vickers, and then from Lauren Gray to me. So it's a really neat way to make your books more valuable to yourself. It's just got more history that way to you personally. So I know a lot of people have a lot of different things like that that mean a lot to them. One of the most, this is probably the more valuable book that I have. And this is, if you can see it here, Books of Camps and Trails. And this is a picture of, it's really a painting of Zane Grey on the Mogollon Rim there. But they didn't make a lot of this. They didn't reprint it until later when they did some other editions that came out in the 90s, I believe. But it didn't really come out in a second edition like this, like most of the other books. So it was a little bit rare. And I had one without a jacket that I bought from a friend, another friend in the group, John Gilbert. And then I was able to find this one and kind of upgrade. So I know a lot of you have a certain book in a certain condition, and then you're trying to get a better one all the time. And that's what happened with this one for me. This one has actually came out from Romer Gray, really is who had this. And another one, this one came, I bought this in one of our auctions, and there's one of these in the current auction right now, not signed like this one is, but this is Last of the Plainsmen, the outing edition, so it's the older version. And what's really neat about this one is it's signed by Buffalo Jones and it's signed by Zane Grey, both. And even better than that, it belonged to a past vice president of the Zane Grey West Society. Really, this came from Gil and Gert Young's collection. So it holds a lot of extra personal memories for me. Gert was making our Afghan at every convention, and my kids were really attached to her because she always let them do the drawings. But this has Buffalo Jones's signature in here, and it's got Zane Grey's signature in here. So it's a book I heard about. I heard there was these double signed books, and I've only seen two, so I was really excited to be able to get this one. So the auctions that we have hold some pretty nice items, so it's a great way to get things. And I know there's an auction going on right now that we have, and I bid on a few things, but I keep getting outbid by some of you all. But there's some great deals in there. A lot of you know about the Walter Blacks. I know Jim was collecting the Walter Blacks, and he got a whole set of these. I had a set minus the camp robber for years, and I finally ended up getting one, I think at our Florida convention in the auction there. So now I have one of these, but there's actually one of these probably in a little bit better condition than this one in our current auction. But this is the one that you're always looking for in a bookstore that you're hoping to find for $5, but it just doesn't seem to happen anymore. But the camp robber is certainly collectible. There were 75 of these, so you'll see these up for sale a lot, and somebody will say, I have the whole set, I have 60. And usually what that means is they're missing the rare titles, the Wolf Tracker, the Camp Robber, and the kids' titles and the biography. They're kind of at the end of that series. It went from, I think, the early 60s to, I think this was done in 76 or so. But this is really a first edition. It didn't really come out in Camp Robber until this book. So it's one you see some, but I've seen it sell for over $200. And the one that, I don't know what the price is, Terry probably knows, the one currently, but last time I looked, it was $40 or $50 right now. So it was a really good buy. Some other items besides books. This is, and you've probably seen these around at different times, but this is a Zane Grey Endorsed sword fishing hook. I couldn't believe the size of it, for one thing. But these came, I bought these from another member in the group that helped people complete their collections. This came from Les Smith in our group, and I was at his house one time because he lived here in Mesa, and he had this, he really had like about 6 or 8 of these. They were on a card and they were all connected together, and they were just with a perforated line, and you tore them off. And he found them at the swap meet. Somebody had them, but these are pretty cool because they're a little different. Got Zane Grey's picture and signature on them in there. So there's a lot of fishing items, but this one I was able to afford. And something else fishing related, the Zane Grey Endorsed knife that we have. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. It has Zane Grey's name on the blade there. You've probably seen it before. And then it's got on the side, that dark space on the side of the bone handle is for sharpening hooks. So this is a fishing knife. So you'll see this around in different places in certain auctions sometimes. So the thing about Zane Grey, there's so many different things you can get. And I've talked to people that have things that I've never even heard about that are just all over the place for collecting. You'll see a lot of checks that are signed by Zane Grey. The family didn't seem to throw anything away. And you'll see these a lot, but Jim will like this one. This one is signed, it's made out to Lasky famous players. Jesse Lasky ended up starting Paramount Pictures. And so this is a $500 check that Zane Grey wrote to Lasky famous players. So it's, Lasky went with Gray to Rainbow Bridge, and there's some really neat pictures of him on the way there as they were scouting locations. Something else that you see a lot, and there's a lot of different ones here, and are the Big Little books. And you'll see these are pretty fragile, so it's hard to get one in really good condition, because if the kids had them, they used them up pretty good. But they have cartoons inside, different things, and there's several different titles. Most of them are this size, but there's a couple that are different sizes, larger really. But they're pretty neat, and they made a lot of these besides the Zane Grey ones. There's a ton. There's a whole group of folks that just collect Big Little books. And there's a lot of movie items out there. This happens to be a Zane Grey adventure stories. Get this up here. You can read that, and it has a lot of different actors pictured on here. Gary Cooper's in there, Alan Ladd's in there on the back, and a lot of different people. But this is a little 8mm film strip. So you pull it out and it's on the reel. But this is an interesting one, and maybe somebody can help me on this one. This is called Hoofs of Fury. I have no idea what that is, but it says Hoofs of Fury on there. It's not, it doesn't seem to turn up in any of our reference guides that I've seen. All right. We also have, there's a lot of different fishing books. They have them in the Grosset and Dunlop. They have them in the Harpers. This is a Grosset here, Tales of Fishes. Real beautiful covers, and they have just great pictures inside. So these are always really nice. They run a little bit more money than the novels do usually for the most part, but these are great to find. And you can see these in some of the auctions, I think. Another one, and this particular one is in our current auction. It's Tales of a Fisherman's Log. So this is a log that they put into a book form. It came out, the first edition came out in '78, and there was a second edition in 1980. So the first edition sells for a little bit more usually, but a very nice book to have. It has a great photo on the back. And there's besides the Walter Blacks, they also put out a leather bound version. And if Henry's on, I can't see all the people that are on. Henry helped me get this book in New York. They had 3 of them that were in like new condition, and I ended up getting them from him. But they had, I believe, 4 of these that we can find, and I saw a 5th, I think, the other day that I didn't even know existed. So we keep finding new things that we didn't even know were out there. But beautifully done, and most of these, when you find them, they're in pretty good condition. But they were done by Walter Black. So they started to put these out. It looked like maybe they were going to put out a full leather edition, which would have been beautiful, but they only put out a few copies and then they stopped. But very nice. Some people collect different books on compilations of stories that have a Zane Grey story in them. And I have several of those, but I tried to pull out one that I think people wouldn't know about or wouldn't have seen so far. And this one came out by Amwell, who puts out a lot of hunting books. It's a leather bound limited edition. These usually came out 1 of 1,000. It was called Hunting the Big Cats. And it's just got a lot of different stories and Teague's lines in this. They've got one story in this, and it's one that people really don't see. It comes in a slipcase, and there's 2 volumes, and it's a nice set. The magazines are something else that are really interesting, and I found a little bit hard to collect because they were hard to put anywhere. You know, you piled them up and couldn't see them. But they have some fantastic artwork, and some of the stories in them are just really interesting. I got to back up a little bit, but this had bear trails in it. But the Country Gentleman, just a very large size magazine, and great pictures and photos that Gray supplied them. But this is something else that if you get into these, there are tons of these, and really they're a little bit less money than they used to be. And there's some really good stories. I think this magazine, American Magazine, had The Man Who Influenced Me Most. And Ed talked about this, I believe, on his talk about the Mormons on the first night. And this is one I looked for a long time because I was always interested in this. And when I was president, one of the big comments, you get a lot of questions about my son's named this, and I think it's in a Zane Grey now. Well, that was a big question we used to get a lot. But a question I used to get a lot was, Zane Grey didn't like Mormons, did he? You know, and I'd always refer him to this story to show that that wasn't the case across the board at all. He was very impressed with some people that he ran across, and Jim Emmett was one of those people that inspired him enough so that he wrote a magazine article about it. Another one in American that's got a really great story in it, What the Desert Means to Me. And so you can see there's a lot of neat stories to be found that you might not have read in any book any place, and you can find them in the magazines, and they haven't been published in book form. And there's some funny, odd ones that you wouldn't expect. A men's magazine, and it has a fishing story in it. But it's funny, it's a men's magazine, and I think the story in this is the one that got away. So you're not really sure what it's about, but it is a fishing story. So there's a lot of different things there. I think this one's in the auction too. This is a leatherette that has a really nice binding on it, leatherette binding, and it was put out for Gray by, I believe, Harper's. And it has some other stories in here. I have to get my glasses, but there's some things in here that are interesting, and some pretty good photos in here also that you wouldn't expect in a little booklet like this. But what the open means to me is in here, and so you can find it here. And these used to sell for way over $100. I think the one that was in our auction currently, I think it was a little bit less than that. So something to look at. They also made this in a paperback version, which you see sometimes, and it's in a yellow paperback. Everything's the same on the inside. It's just not half as pretty as the leatherette version, really. So you can see you can get into a lot of different things. This is a book called Zane Grey in the South Seas, and it's a real pretty book, very small. It's got a little story that Aim Morhart wrote, and Aim traveled with Gray later in his travels. And it's got some nice photos in it, and you can see there's a picture of Aim, and he was with them, did a lot of photography, and he was even interviewed in the 80s. He was still around and did some interviews that you could see. But it's an interesting little book that you don't see very much, and I don't think there was a lot of these published. This one happens to have the ad that came with it that was advertising the book at the time. And it had a drawing that they put in a drawing of one of the launches, the Zane Grey SS, which was one of the launches that they had, not the big boat. All right. Zane Grey, Western Motion Picture. This is an article that he did on, I don't know if you can read that very well. He did on the motion picture. Again, it came out in a magazine. You can find it in magazine form, but this was the actual book form. There's even some strange artwork in it, really, that of Gray inside that's a little different. So you run across these odd odd things that are just a little bit different than you would expect. Probably some people have seen this Lord of Lackawaxen Creek, which is from one of the real early stories. It's a little book that they did, and I think it was done in 1981, but it's a little hard to keep on the shelf because it's so small, but it's a little different. The smallest Zane Grey book that I have. And when you're going to the conventions, most of the time you're looking through bookstores and you're looking through shops. And when we had a convention that I ended up going through Moab, we were going up into Utah, I ran across this placket that was used by Turner when they were doing Riders of the Purple Sage. They had these little signs up. So this one was in an antique store. And so I picked this up, and this was right after the movie Riders of the Purple Sage was filmed up in the Moab area. So I don't know how many there are like that. There's probably a few out there, but probably fairly rare, I'm guessing. I like to think, at least. And then other items that you might run across that don't have anything to do with books other than how to hold them. These particular, these are brass or bronze, I'm not sure, but they came out of the Zane Grey house. And so I was able to pick these up at one of our auctions, really, and very heavy. But they're pretty cool because they came from the house. I thought that was really neat. They were actually in the museum for a while in Payson, Arizona, that they had up there. It was a private museum. You can also get, jump around here, plates. They made a lot of plates that had Zane Grey on them. And so these were kind of collectibles too. Most of these came out of the Zanesville area. And here's one from the Zane Grey Museum. You can see that. And Cheryl, I'm thinking, I don't know what to do with this, that I've got this pot from Zanesville, but I'm thinking a ice cream and a sundae maybe. You can see Rainbow Bridge on there. Might be, yeah, I could probably just about do that. And I know a lot of people collected paperbacks, really, and you can get all first edition in paperback. And there's a lot of work in that. This particular book, I liked it because I liked the cover, and it was pretty, I didn't see it very often at all. It's called Shark. And it was one that was written by Zane Grey, but Lauren Gray put it out, I believe, in the 70s. And then you've probably seen these. I thought I'd pull them out because I was always looking for these books, the Max Brand books that have mistakes in them that list Zane Grey. And if you look at the reward, it says Max Brand, but if you open it up, it says by Zane Grey. So they printed it incorrectly. And what amazes me is if you look at the list of books, and these are all Zane Grey books, in there in the R's, it'll say the reward. So they even said it that way, which is really odd. That there was a couple mistakes in this one. This one was a little bit rarer that I hadn't heard about until I think Les Smith told me about it. It's called Rawhide Justice. And they took it a step farther here. This one actually said Max Brand in it. But when you look at the list of books, they've got Zane Grey's books again. They've got the reward in there from the other book, but they've also got Rawhide Justice in here. So they added 2 in here when they did this book and printed the page incorrectly. So just another thing that you could be collecting and that have Zane Grey's name on it or tied to Zane Grey. So there's quite a few of those types of items. I've got one here, and I can't really show this well. And this is because I can't light it. I tried it with a flashlight. I tried it in a lot of different ways. But this is a movie slide, a glass slide that they used to use. And it would announce a movie or an upcoming movie. And this one says UP Trail on it. It's in beautiful color. And they still have some of these lamps. There's collector groups that collect these, and they have the lamps that they could put these in. So it'd be really neat to see this in use. But it's there's a lot of different types of slides out there too. But I'd like to stop at this point and see if anybody else brought anything that they'd like to show that meant a lot to them or they're proud of or just wanted to show the group. David? Can you take him off mute, Terry, or he's got to do it?
First of all, can you see
Gotcha.
that? That's a cover which I love. It's an English first edition, and the book itself is rather special to me because it has Zane Grey's signature on it. Can you see?
Yeah.
So it's special to me, is that? Cost a lot of money. Now there's a book here, Forlorn River. It says inside it's a first edition for by Harper's, which I don't have any reason to suspect it isn't. But the interesting thing is the back page. The back page is a list of books, the first 8 Westerns, and those first 8 Westerns were sold in Britain because at that time, Hodder and Stoughton hadn't got the, what shall I call it, the franchise. Harper's never sold in Britain other than those 8 books. And it says on the bottom, it's the London address on the bottom there. And what I'm wondering is, what's it doing on the back of an American publication? Because that book was never sold by Harper's in Britain. And I'm wondering if it's just a printer's error. That somehow or other they've got the back page of a British edition, which would be one of those first 8, and tied it up with the American publication. I've never heard of anybody who's got another one like it. Any comments?
Oh, that's interesting. I love the misprint type things, the errors, or if there was a reason, what's the reason, and you don't know what it is. Those are interesting.
Yeah. That's me done.
Does anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I do. I have 3 items that I could share with you. Some of you may have seen this. Right at the very bottom of the picture is a lion. This is the photo of the lion out of, I believe, the Last of the Plainsmen. They're saying Kitty's hiding under a rock. But what's important is that this is the original picture taken by Zane Grey. This is the description that he gave to his brother, and it's backwards there. So what it basically says is, this is the photograph of the lion whose mounted skin I'm sending you for a Christmas present. And then he talks about how that lion is the one who died trying to hold on to the side of the cliff. And this was sent in December 1908. So it was prior to the publication of any of those books. So that's a treasure that my wife picked up for me. This isn't so much a treasure as a surprise for me. This is a paperback copy of Zane Grey's Blue Feather. But what's impressive, and Harvey actually turned me on to this, not this copy, but this information. Blue Feather is a story that Louisa Weatherall sent to Zane Grey, and then he reinvented it later. This particular book includes her actual handwritten text that she sent to Zane Grey in the back of it. So if you wanted to read the real story of Blue Feather, this edition, which is by Manor Books, is one that you could look at. And then finally, I just want to mention, this is a comic book that I picked up at some time. and I don't know how much value comic books are. I've often thought that we might be able to do something with them for younger people. But all of the Dell comic books, Terry, is now scanned and they're available for your review online. So that's all that I have. Any questions I can answer?
Yeah, I just want to say, Ed, that Blue Feather, that is in the 1925 version of The Vanishing American. That's the first part of the film that they combined Vanishing American with the beginning part was from Blue Feather.
Oh, that's interesting.
I have one item, if I could show it. This is, let's see if I can get the lighting right. This is a Grosset and Dunlap of Rainbow Trail. And Grosset and Dunlap, if you're a real purist, you go, all right, I'll do it. But this is why this book has meaning to me. Zane Grey's, his signature, this is my favorite book.
Yeah, that's really neat.
And I was pretty astonished when I found that one. And so we use that on that facing page in our centennial reproduction. I just tried to scan that signature and that inscription as best I could. And that's what is included in the centennial edition that I think all of you have purchased. But I only have one Zane Grey signed item, and that's it.
Hey, Jim, I
That's a
saw
good
some.
one.
I saw something on eBay, and I saved a copy. I can't show it to you, but it was inscribed to Dolly, Rainbow Trail, and he said it was his favorite novel, and it was the most idealistic novel, and his first bestseller. I'll send that to you.
Oh, I'd love to see that. Thank you. Slip it into the book.
Here's
Here's
something I want to
something-
show. This is Last of the Plainsman, first edition, and it's been signed by, you probably have seen this. It's been signed by a chemistry professor named Marston Bogart. It's been signed by Zane Grey and Buffalo Jones. What's interesting about this book is that you've seen this copy. All these copies were signed on December 4th, 1909 at the Campfire Club party in New York, and to celebrate Buffalo Jones as he was heading to Africa to rope wild animals. So every one of these books you see that's signed by both of them, that was done on 4 December 1909. Anyway, I'm pretty excited about it. I like that. But it was interesting to know that, you know. Gray said, you know, he had 11 articles rejected in the previous months. And this, he wrote in his diary and letters as well, that this book, that this experience there where he got a standing ovation was so important to him, because he finally felt like someone gave him some credit for what he was doing. And it was a really probably the most praise he'd gotten at this point in his career.
Here's something very different. This is one of 13 volumes of Edwin Markham. And you know who he is. He's the one that we have the poem that he drew a circle and shut me out. Edwin Markham wrote this 13 volume set, published from about 1907 to a few years later. And my grandfather bought this set, gave it to my father, along with some Zane Grey books. But the interesting thing about it is Markham writes about the history of America starting in 1435, before Columbus, all the way up to 1910. And he does it in historical romance, fictional story. I wish Joe Wheeler was on. He could tell us about the relationship between Gray and Markham, because in the Tom Pauley book, I discovered a quote that said, that Zane Grey arranged for Daniel Murphy, the son-in-law poet of Edwin Markham, to become his literary agent, which I found kind of interesting in itself. I don't know if anybody knows about it, knows why Joe Wheeler always used this poem and the relationship to Zane Grey. Does anybody know the significance, history of that?
I
We'll have
don't,
to ask Joe, but it's a 13-volume set, leather-bound set.
Nice.
my
That's
understanding,
interesting connection.
The connect, what?
No, I just said it was an interesting connection, the Zane Grey, you know, to
Yeah,
the
well,
poem.
it's
and-
Zane Grey. I don't know if you're going to
background.
end the convention with Markham's poem or not, but there you have it.
can you hear me? Am I on?
Sure.
Okay. The only thing that I know about that is that Joe always seemed to say that he and GM wanted this society to be different than all the other conventions and conferences that everybody had attended, where you have your little circle and you shut everybody else out. And that poem seemed to embody that notion that we should embrace and include all others. And so that's why they chose it and why it's been recited at all of the conventions up to now. And just FYI, if you haven't looked at my video yet, I included it there so that we could officially say, virtual convention or not, it was all there, outwitted. We recite this at every convention, recite along with me. So it's at near the end of my video, in case you haven't checked it out yet.
Just an interesting aside. At the Kanab convention, unfortunately, one of my friends was not in town. She's a cowboy poet who's the great granddaughter of Edwin Markham. And so, you know, that would have been very interesting. It's also interesting that Edwin Markham was a hero of the Socialist Party, because he wrote a couple of poems about the worker, the downtrodden worker in the world. And so the Socialist Party made him they adopted him.
Yeah, well, I found very curious this sentence in Tom Pauly's book that Zane Grey hired his son-in-law as a literary agent of some sort. I don't know anything about that. Maybe somebody else does. Page 80 of Tom Pauly's
I
book.
heard it. Does anybody else have anything that they wanted to show?
Yeah, I do, Todd. I've got
Okay.
I got two books here. I've got the which one is that? The
Writers?
Purple Sage.
Riders with Purple Sage. And these books are they're large books. They're about 6 inches by 9 inches. And they're by Harper. They're Harper's. And they say first edition, but the dates are off for like Tappan's Borough is 1870. That's a 1923 for Tappan's Borough, and then Riders, it's 1921. But they look like they're large print reading. So I'm not sure if anybody has seen these or know anything about these.
Yeah, I think, Terry, you got background on that one, don't you? You there,
Yeah.
Terry?
Yeah, I'm here. Tell you the truth, I can't remember the story, but I believe those are actually the
Anniversary?
10th anniversary editions. And I doubt Writers says that it's a first edition. Maybe it does, but Tappan's, that would be about right. Tappan's Borough, I believe that large edition, that format edition probably is the first edition of Tappan's Borough. But the Writers, I believe it's a 10th anniversary commemorative edition printed by Harper's. Both of those were printed with a dust jacket, and the dust jackets, especially for Writers, are exceptionally difficult to find.
Yeah, they do not say first edition.
Okay. All
So
right.
they might be what you're saying, a 10th edition, 10th anniversary.
I'm a little surprised about Tappan's Borough because I believe that one was a first edition. Writers we know is not. Writers was 1912, but I thought the Tappan's, the large edition of Tappan's, I thought that was the first edition.
Harry,
Yes.
I have the Tappan's large print first edition.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, mine does say first edition, Tappan's Borough. It
Okay,
does
good.
say that. Yes.
Yep. Yep.
Anything
I'll
else
mention,
of anything?
yeah, this is Harvey. Hi, Todd.
Harvey, go ahead.
I'll mention a few things. Because of Zane Grey's connection with my family, John and Louisa Wetherill, we have some family items. For instance, I think you've probably seen this from their guest register. It's a record of a trip he made there, and we have several different pages of trips that he made to Kayenta and Rainbow Bridge, and listed my great-grandfather as a guide, so you can see the Zane Grey's signature and the other participants in that trip. And then this one is the 1922 trip. So we had to have a record of who was on that trip, and also a nice sketch by Lillian Wilhelm Smith to illustrate that. So the Wetherills had a guest register at their trading post, and when visitors would come, they'd ask them to sign in. So we have the original of that. This is a photocopy. As far as Lillian Wilhelm Smith, who I think you all know was Dolly's cousin, and first came out in 1913 on Zane Grey's first trip to Rainbow Bridge. And she became quite a close friend of our family. I've collected a few items that from her. This is I don't know if you can see it very well. It's a painting of the inside of the Wetherills' abandoned house at Old Jato, Utah. This is an original watercolor that got passed down through the family. And then this is just something I picked up on eBay, painting of a Hopi man that she made. I'm sorry the lighting isn't better in here, but anyway, you can get a little idea. And most of you have probably seen some of the plates and dinnerware she designed. There's 3 different designs, Indian motifs. I've collected a few of those down through the years.
Thanks, Harvey.
Can I just have a word? David, what I was going to say is not anything unusual, but my collection of English first editions is now on display in the Zane Grey cabin.
Oh, really?
And it will be there permanently.
Oh, nice.
So if anybody gets a chance to go to Payson, call in and have a look, because they've all got dust jackets on, and the dust jackets are completely different to the American ones.
And I can attest.
That's good to know, David. Thank you.
There. And they pointed them out to me, David.
Sorry?
I think Ed said that he was there and they pointed them out to him.
All right.
And I said, thank you for doing that. That's wonderful. Great.
Well, I thought when anything happens to me, they'll just get broken up. So they go to somewhere where they'll appreciate them and people can see them.
That's neat. Does anybody else have anything?
I have a couple of very unusual items here that I'll show off. If you can see this, it's a Walter J. Black. It's a copy of Fighting Caravans, and the book itself is not in very good shape. But if you look on the inside of it, if you can see that, it's from the Black's Reader Service Company, and it says the 1,000,000th Golden West Deluxe Edition of the collection of Zane Grey, presented to Mrs. Lina Elise Grey. And it's signed down at the bottom by the two Blacks, Walter Black and Theodore Black. So this was the 1,000,000th copy actually produced by Walter J. Black in that series. And then here's a copy of the Dude Ranger. And on the inside of it, to Mrs. Lina Elise Grey, this 2,000,000th copy of the Golden West edition presented to Lina Elise Grey, again signed by Walter Black and Theodore Black. So very unique items. I'd never seen those before and just happened to luck onto them.
That's nice.
Todd, I have a
Nice.
question.
Interesting. Yeah.
I have a question. In the books that you showed and that everyone here has shown, in your opinion, how does the value change when there is a signature by Zane Grey or Lauren Grey, or in the case of Terry's books by the two Blacks? What's the difference in price?
Yeah, I think it varies a lot. I think book prices are down a little bit from where they used to be, say 10 years ago, but it certainly can increase the price depending on the book. You can start with a book that's not really worth a whole lot, and all of a sudden it's worth quite a bit because it was signed by Zane Grey or came from the Zane Grey home, something like that. I don't know if there'd be a percentage though, because if it's a real expensive book, it might not increase it as much as it would a low price book. I don't know if other people have a thought on that.
Well, can I just say something? You know the book I showed you of the Wild Horse Messer with Zane Grey's signature in? I paid about $900 for that. I had another one, which is in the Payson collection, which cost me £100. That gives you some idea of the difference with the Zane Grey signature.
Wow.
This book is selling for about $2,000 now. I didn't pay that much, fortunately, but yeah, signature's worth a lot.
Yeah, especially double signed like that one is.
I'll add a comment too, because I was buying Zane Grey movie posters, lobby cards, heralds, stills for, oh my goodness, 30 years for the BYU collection. And what I noticed every time is market forces determine what these prices are. It's timing, it's who the seller is, and what the buyer is willing to pay for it. And so Terry is right. It's variable. Time, place, buyer, seller, need. And sometimes we collectors can pick up some what we would call real steals. At other times, the price is really high, but we may really want it at that particular time. And we will pay more than we thought we would have to pay. But in the collecting world, it's really no different than in the world around us. It's demand, supply, and buyer's desire.
Jim, I have a question for you. Just thought of it. I've been reading some articles that they're discovering old films in Russia. What do you know about the new films being discovered in Russia?
Oh, I know a lot about that because I premiered one of their finds when I ran the archival film series at BYU. And it was a Dolores Del Rio 1928 film called Ramona. And it was found in the Russian Film Archive. And the Library of Congress did a restoration of it. And the movie was all filmed in Utah, in Zion National Park. So you have an inherently Southern California legendary story, all filmed in Utah. But Zion National Park presented some incredible pictorial backgrounds for that movie. So yes, because my business was film archives for 41 years, I was very close to that situation. So, you know, in this business of, if you're asking, well, could there be this Zane Grey book with a Zane Grey signature in it? No, too much time has gone by. Too many auctions have been held. I never say never.
Jim,
I think
Jim,
you're right.
have you gotten any leads on any of the missing Zangri silent movies?
Unfortunately, no, because when I wrote my book, When Hollywood Came to Utah, I was so disappointed that so many of the Paramount Pictures silent films with Jack Holt, Tim Holt's father, and even Gary Cooper, one of which was filmed in Zion National Park, Nevada, are still lost films. None of those have been rediscovered, unfortunately. But I have the same mantra for that as well. Never say never. I just hope I can live long enough to see some of these discoveries.
Find that next treasure. Yeah.
That is the question. Yeah.
You know, I wanted to say something. You know, we showed a lot of stuff that we have, and you buy and sell that stuff. But I think I was thinking about this the other night as I was watching Roseanne's video, that, you know, things that you collect, and you collect memories and experiences and friends. And over the time that I've been in here, and the video that I was watching, I think went from 2018, I believe. And so it was like a 10-year period. And there's another quite a big period from 8 to when I came in. And even before that, there was another 9 years before I was there, that there's pictures and people. And it's just super of all, you know, so many people here that I'm real good friends with, I feel. And that's something that's like you collect and you could take with you. Like some of this stuff you're not gonna be able to take with you, but those things I feel you can, you know, those friendships that last forever, and also all those memories of places that I've gone, you know, different places, and conversations that you've had over the time with people that are here and some that aren't here. That stuff's just great.
Amen to that.
Part of collecting, I guess.
Right.
So Terry, I guess we'll throw it back to you now.
Okay, I'm back. At that point, I want to really thank Todd for running this and giving us the items. Thank everybody else for showing off items. And I hope this was entertaining, fun, and worthwhile to everybody. This is the final event for the convention, other than the auction that's still going on. There will be an email coming out on the auction later tonight or first thing in the morning. I'll ask you to take a look at that. If anybody has any comments on the convention, feel free to send those to me. We'd love to see the comments. This was the grand experiment, believe me. It's we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know how to run this. We did a lot of guessing and a lot of flying by the seat of our pants on putting this all together. And I think it's turned out much better than we were expecting that it would. And so I hope everybody else has enjoyed it and has enjoyed the experience. I will say, I would much rather do this in person. I'd like to see all of your smiling faces in the same room with me rather than doing this online and in that fashion. So let's hope that in 2021, we're able to do that in Tucson and we'll get to see everybody in person there. So at this point, I'm not going to do the Markham poem. Roseanne included that in her video. And so go back and take a look at that. But at this point, we're going to call the convention and close it. And I just can't thank everybody enough for your participation and for your assistance and your help in pulling this all off. So everybody.
Thank you, Terry. Thank
Can I
you.
just say something before you finish, Terry?
Okay.
It's been wonderful for me because I can't get to the, well, I doubt if it'll ever come to another convention, but I've been able to participate in this one and see so many of you. And it's really been great for me.
It's been wonderful to see you. I'm sorry we kept you up till 2 a.m. though.
Longer tomorrow.
So that's it, folks. Thank you so much. It's been a lot of work, but a lot of fun. And I'm just so thrilled to be able to see all of you. We just consider every one of you to be our family. And let's keep it that way and hope to see you again very soon in another convention.
Amen.
Thank you, Terry.
Nice work, Terry.
Thank you.
Right on. Stay safe.
Good to
Thank you.
see
Thank you,
everybody.
Terry and Todd and all, and Jim and everyone who participated and made it all happen. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.